Greetings once again, friends. We've been working our way through the story of Jesus' birth in this year's Advent drawing journey, and we've really come a long way. Today, we're going to be adding in another part of the story that maybe you never exactly thought about, but probably had to look like something. We're going to be drawing our way of representing the building that Mary and Joseph and Jesus had their first night together in when they got to Bethlehem. We probably have seen some kind of version of the story where Mary and Joseph are in something that sort of looks like a house with a pitched roof and maybe either looks like a shed or a stable or a barn or something like that. We're going to talk in just a little bit about what might actually have looked like, but for our purposes, we're going to draw something that kind of looks like that, even though we're not really sure what kind of a space or building it was that Mary and Joseph actually got to be in when Jesus was born. But if you come close, we'll take a look at how we're going to draw it today, and then what it means maybe for the story. Okay, so we said that Mary and Joseph have their baby. The story goes they lay Jesus in a manger, and we're going to get to drawing the manger. You might have noticed we haven't even drawn this manger yet. Everything in its time, my friends, everything in its time. But our Bible story in the Gospel of Luke says they laid Jesus in a manger because there was no place for them. And sometimes our translations say there's no place for them in an inn, like a hotel, but hotels, sort of like we think of them, didn't really exist, at least not quite the way we picture it. And the word that we translate in isn't the word that it's there in the Bible story. It's actually more like there wasn't any room in a guest room for them, and so Mary and Joseph used the next best place that was available, the room where they kept animals. Most everybody back in the ancient world would have had, some kind of animals in their household. Not like as pets, but a sheep or a goat or a cow that would provide milk and dairy for the family. Even if you lived in the city, you would have some kind of animals to provide your dairy products, maybe chickens running around, that kind of thing. Even if you didn't have a big farm, you'd have some animals that you took care of that you'd get milk or cheese or meat from, that kind of thing. So everybody's house has some room that sort of was almost like we might treat a garage nowadays. Most people's houses have garages, and whether you have a lot of cars or a very few cars, you've got the space. So this is sort of like Mary and Joseph didn't have a room of their own. They didn't own a house of their own in Bethlehem because they were visiting. They were going for the census. So instead, people put them up in the best room they could offer them, the room where they kept all the animals, or at least maybe while Mary was giving birth, they could have some kind of like privacy where Mary could have the baby and maybe eventually everybody could get to sleep. Now, for our purposes, it's hard to know. What did that look like? What kind of a building was it? And was it just part of a house? Was it a room on the house? Was it the room under the house where a lot of people would have kept their animals back in the first century in Bible times? Probably. It was almost like the lower level, again, almost like the garage and the house is built on top of it. But for our purposes, we're going to sort of picture it kind of like this. We've got our city of Bethlehem right up here, and we're going to draw sort of like Mary and Joseph and everybody are standing just outside of it, but we're going to draw it sort of like there's some posts standing up this way, 2 lines there, and some posts standing up this way, standing like that, and I'm going to draw it sort of with a flat roof like this. Because we talked about this before. We're used to picturing things with like a sort of pointy roof. And it's fine, it might well have been like that, but it just doesn't seem likely in a world where they didn't have a lot of rainfall. You didn't build a roof to be sharp at an angle like that because you weren't worried about water running off. You weren't worrying about snow piling up on your roof. So a lot of buildings just sort of had like a flat roof. And again, that could be the place where you would do your laundry in the warm weather, or where you could leave things to dry. It was just like an extra space, like some people have a patio in their houses these days. So it's just simple. It almost looks like a table. It almost looks like just a pretty simple hut. So whether this was a room that was part of the house that they stayed in, or whether it was a separate building like a shed or a stable, which is possible, just not super likely, that's what this space is going to be for us. Again, pretty simple, but it helps us to center where our attention is supposed to go. That there in the city of Bethlehem, somewhere in that city, there is this space, like a guest room, like the extra room where they kept the animals, like a stable where Jesus was born. this is an important thing maybe for us to stop and talk about for a minute. We've said all throughout this exercise that some of the things that we're drawing, we don't know for sure what it really looked like. And it's okay if it turns out one day when we get to glory, if we get to talk to Jesus and say, hey, what was it like? Maybe it looked different. Maybe the arrangement of the buildings was awfully different. Maybe angels look a lot different than we've imagined them. Maybe there was a whole mess of sheep instead of just two. These things that we're drawing are just meant to help us remember the story so that we can tell other people and remind each other about why it's good news that Jesus came. So right into the midst of things, not somewhere far, far away, but right in the midst of the noise and the hustle and the bustle and the chaos. That's where Jesus was born. That's an important thing to remember, because again, sometimes we imagine the story of Jesus like it was, quiet and calm and planned, when really it was right into the mess and the bustle and the crowds of people that had come into the city. God comes right into the midst of our lives. That's really good news that's worth telling. So it's less about what did the building look like and more a reminder God comes right into the midst of us, right there into the crowds, right into the city, right there into the house, in fact. We're going to draw more next time on our Advent drawing journey, but thanks for being with us here this time today.